All right, let's talk about stoves. So, lots of options here with stove. The majority of people use what we call a canister stove. And so that's going to be the stove that you see in the bottom left corner with the woman, and you'll see the white canister of fuel. Once the fuel runs out, boom, we throw the canister away or we recycle it, if you will. Okay? You'll notice in the pictures of the range at the top of different stoves that there are lots of options for these canisters. And we could talk about this for hours and all of the options that we have, but I'm just going to give you some of the snippets, and you can reach out to me if you have any questions specifically about stoves. Okay, perks to the canisters is that they are self put together. Okay, so they have a pressure inside, and as you burn through your fuel, the pressure goes away, the fuel runs out. Downside is at higher elevations you can't use all the fuel in your canister. So this doesn't mean a good percentage of your canister, but still some of your canister can't be used. Okay, um, you can buy stoves like that green one that you'll see in the picture called a Jetboil. And basically everything in that stove packs into that green container. So you boil your water into the green container. You can put your fuel in there, and everything fits so nicely in there. Other options that you have, like the stove that you will see that has the white canister at the top there is a stove that goes to the canister, and then they come separate, and it's actually a smaller space used, and you can pack it throughout your pack as you see fit. That's typically considerably lighter and my choice over the Jetboil where everything packs together. So those are your canister options. As far as your liquid options, you'll see the one in the bottom right corner that says MSR in red. This is what we call a liquid, where you fill your own white fuel in there and you pump it yourself to create pressure. And then it starts the fire in that silver portion of the stove, and that's where you can boil water. I'm going to go into food later in the next series, okay? And in the food, when we're talking about prepping for trips and trip logistics, you'll notice that with a lot of backpacking, you boil water and you put it into dehydrated food. So that's why most of these stoves are just made to boil water. Downside to the liquid stove, you have to what we call prime it, so it takes longer. You don't just turn it on and go, okay? It is bigger and heavier and not as concise. It can spill easier, which then we have a fire hazard. Most of the time you'll see canister stoves, and the only time that we will see these liquid stoves that require hand pumping is going to be at super high elevations where we can't use the pre-made canister stoves, or in very cold conditions, which also impairs a canister stove from working. When picking a stove, you want to think about how it will fit into your system and your pack, not necessarily just what's easiest, but think, do I have space? What do I have space for in all of my gear, as well as the overall weight? Stoves are a great place to shave weight of your pack and make your pack lighter, but they also can be expensive to do that. Moving forward into how we have a kitchen set up. So we have our stoves, and some of them are like the Jetboil where everything is put together. Others are going to be the canister stove where you buy just the canister and then you buy just the stove itself, and then you have to buy some sort of pot and pan. So you'll notice in the top right hand corner of this screen that there is a pan there. You can do pots, you can do pans. This is where you can shave a lot of weight. You could do titanium versus some of the other aluminum options that are going to be heavier. Okay, depending on what you're cooking, I have a friend that cooks a lot of lentils in the backcountry, so he has dehydrated lentils, but he eats out of there, so he does a slow cook and a slow boil of his lentils. And so he uses a pan versus I use a pot because I do lots of fast cooking in the backcountry. As far as utensils go, you'll see a plethora of options. Some are plastic, some are super light titanium, some are aluminum. Um, you will notice that some people bring knives. You'll notice that some people only use spoons, that some people use forks. It really depends on you and what you would desire. The Sea to Summit silver spork in the bottom left corner is my hands down favorite utensil. In fact, I have put these in stockings for years. What's really nice about this is it has the longest handle that I have seen on silverware, and I feel like that's one of the best tickets to keeping your dirty hands out of your food is having a nice long utensil to eat with. When you are cleaning stuff in the backcountry, like I said, I'll go over some of this with logistics, but just to cover it now, we never clean our pots and pans and silverware and food into any sort of water system. Okay, we clean 100 feet away from a water system, and we always use decomposable soap. Okay, and so making sure that you're using the Brahmers or you're using some sort of other option, but making sure that we're taking care of our waterways, especially still sitting water, lakes and ponds, okay? Running water and creeks are a lot more likely to clean themselves, even though we still don't want to dilute those as well. Water, another huge topic that I'm happy to nerd out with you over. Big picture here. We have water filtration systems and we have water purification systems. Water filtration systems are pumping out bacteria, dirt, and grime, versus water purification systems are killing viruses. Okay? Now, in our area, we predominantly only need a filtration system because we have clean waterways. If you go to other parts of the world or even other parts of the country, you want to check and make sure that they don't have any issues with their water to know if you need to kill any sort of viruses. Viruses are significantly smaller. I'm sure you're all aware as we talk about COVID of how small viruses are. Significantly smaller than bacteria. So that filter in your filtration system is not going to be able to catch those viruses. They do have filters for viruses, but you want to get the virus specific filter. Okay? So let's start with the filtration system. You have manual or gravity. Okay, so you'll notice that in the top left hand side of your screen, a red water bottle. You'll see a man who is pumping. So he's got one side of the filter in the water, the other side of the filter in his water bottle, and he is pumping. And however fast he can pump is how quickly he can get filtered water into his Nalgene. You'll see the woman in the upper right hand side is using what we call a gravity filter. This means that she has put dirty water inside that blue bag and lets gravity filter for her into her water bottle. There are pros and cons to each of these. Squeeze, pump, straws, that top right, that red water bottle, you can do while you're hiking. So you can supply your water as you go. If you have the gravity, it's harder to do that as you have to take out the gravity filter. You have to hang it from a tree and you have to wait. Now, most gravity filters actually work very quickly, but you also have to get closer to the water in order to use that. But from a camp perspective, it's so much nicer. From a large group perspective, it's so much nicer to not have to pump. There's lots of different options. Some are hand squeeze, some are little tiny put it in a bag and then squeeze it out, things like that, okay? There will be some videos posted in the extra section of this class that you can watch some people performing and doing some of these techniques. As far as the purification goes, you have UV lights, which you put into 1 liter of water. Downside is you can only do 1 liter of water at a time. Okay, and you do that for 60 seconds with the UV light. That's that green stick in the bottom middle part of that picture. And after those 60 seconds, some are 90 seconds, okay, depending on, it will have sterilized or killed the viruses, but it doesn't get rid of the dirt and grime, okay, it just gets rid of those viruses, so you'd still want to put something through a pump system. Chemical is going to be tablets or droplets of chlorine or iodine. If you do this, I consider these a case of emergencies. We don't want chlorine and iodine to be our primary source of cleaning our water, okay? But this is your in case of emergency, doesn't require batteries, doesn't require anything else. Keep in my backpack 10 essentials that we talked about in the last lecture. All right. There are purification systems that are both manual and gravity, like I said, that seem like a filter but are geared specifically towards viruses. Okay, lots of options here, lots of cool stuff. Let me know if you have any questions and would like to nerd out over water filters.